Chester, thank you so much for joining us, mate. I'd love to know a little bit more about you, a little bit more about how you got into this space. And then look, come on, let's have a deep dive into the world of sleep.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. So I first started off in the coaching space. It was 2023. And I started off as a fitness coach because my degrees, I did sport and health science. And then I was also working as a personal trainer. But then I became a respiratory exercise professional, which is basically, I did exercise classes for people with lung conditions. And I was like, how do I keep helping people with fitness? So I took it online, right? And I actually got a mentor because I was like, okay, how can I actually just make this work? Because I had no clue. I'd never done it online before. So he helped me, but I got nowhere. Honestly, like for 2.5 years of coaching, I remember I had like 0 clients. I was posting loads, messaging people, maybe got like 1 or 2, 3, dropped back down to 1, back to 0, back up to like 3. I was stuck in this cycle of like just doing stuff, but not getting anything. And then it was end of 2025. No, I didn't, end of 2024, actually, I believe, where I just like went all in. And then I went from like 5 to 15 online fitness coaching clients. So that was my like background. That's how I got into coaching. Now I work as a sleep scientist in the NHS. And alongside that, I've also started doing sleep and performance coaching. So it's my whole coaching system, but I'm weaving it in from an angle of how can I get business owners performing at their best by improving their sleep, their nutrition, so that they can wake up feeling like they're focused, productive, and actually like move the business forwards.
Wow. Love that. Love that. There's so many ways that we can dive into it. And I think that story into the coaching space will inspire many, right? That
Mm.
sometimes, I think sometimes your niche finds you, right? We talk a lot about niching down, but I think sometimes it finds you and maybe it's not quite where you start and needs a bit of trial and error. And I think that's a really inspirational story. But I'm going to start off. There was a selfish reason why I invited you on, right? Me and Dan actually don't reach out to many people. Most people apply. There's a reason I picked you up. I want to know a little bit more about sleep myself, right? So we're talking a little bit off air. Me and Dan obviously are busy with this business, lots of clients, different time zones. That's our biggest issue is most of our clients are UK or American based, Dan, aren't they, right? I'm in Bali, Dan's in London, right? And I find I'm always cutting sleep short, always. I tend to come from, do you remember like Arnold Schwarzenegger said a long time ago, how do you fit everything in? He just said sleep faster. Right? That's my motto, tends to like with how sleep's been. And I tend to just, but I know it actually holds me back, right? So I just want to know a little bit about what's your thoughts on someone like me and Dan who's mixing time zones, getting up early, staying up late, trying not to nap in the day. I try not to take any supplements because I find I sort of train myself to do them, if that makes sense. I've
Mm.
like tried lots of supplements and then I find I get almost a bit hooked on them. So talk to me more about like, as a founder, as a business owner, right? Lots of different time zones. What
Yeah.
sort of hacks and stuff could you pull out of that?
I think I'm very well equipped to speak about this because I work with business owners primarily. So I know the crack, right? I would say for you, because it's different time zones, honestly, I'll be quite upfront. It is difficult. One of the most important things when it comes to sleep is that consistency, right? Like waking up at a similar time every morning and then going to sleep when you get sleepy. And that's usually going to be consistent. And the reason why that is because every time you wake up at a consistent time, you basically have a sleep drive or a need to sleep that builds up in the day. Now, you can almost think about that as every single hour you're awake, you get sleep tokens. At the end of the day, you can spend these tokens. In return, you get sleep. So when you actually wake up at different times and don't keep that consistent, then you reduce the amount of sleep drive that you have in the evening. So you may struggle to fall asleep. Or if you push through it, you're essentially just like throwing off your circadian rhythm. So it's like you feel alert and sleepy at different times of the day and your body's just really out of sync. In terms of for you, like if you absolutely have to do that, I would be like, okay, how can you keep it consistent most of the days? How can you align your schedule for that? Obviously, on the odd night, if you're staying up late, it's not going to be the end of the world. You would fall asleep later on. You would obviously be very, very tired, and you would try and keep that wake time consistent as usual. That way, that same evening, you can go to bed and you can actually just get back into the exact same routine. Nothing's changed. The problem arises is where you like sleep. So you usually sleep at like imagine you wake up like 8 and you have a really late one. You're up till 2 a.m. And then you sleep until like 10 a.m., 11 a.m. That throws everything off, right? Your circadian rhythm, your sleep drive. And it's the thing that a lot of people get wrong. So you just want to keep that wake time consistent regardless of the time you actually went to bed.
Yeah, I love that. Consistency. And I think there's so much that we can speak about that even from, not just like sleep and physical, but from a business point of view as well. Dan, I'm gonna hand the floor to you. I know Dan's a man of consistency, likes routine, right? Into this is your, and you love stats as well, Dan, don't you? So this is a little bit more into your sort of nature. I mean, for me, it's like I know if I get less than 6 hours sleep a day, I know I make worse decisions. I think that's the fundamentals that I've worked out. But Dan, what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, 100%. I think everyone knows it's important, right? But they don't really prioritize it until they have someone that's a little bit external, right? And they've got that accountability. And I think it's the same with the mentorship that we do, Greg. People need that accountability. And that's a massive part of what makes coaches useful. It's not just the information, but actually the personal aspects of it and making it applicable to you, I guess. I think what you've done really well at Chester on LinkedIn, which most coaches do not do at all, is you've actually said why it matters. So a lot of coaches would be like, I'm going to coach you on how to sleep better. And then they just leave it at that. And people don't really care. They don't care about sleep. They care about the result. They want that performance, which you've done really well. So tell us about how you kind of crafted that. Because obviously there is definitely some thought that's gone behind that. That doesn't come naturally, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You've honestly nailed that. It's like how many, just coaches, specifically more like fitness health coaches, right? How many of them do you say on LinkedIn, don't go on screens 2 hours before bed, use blue light blocking glasses, try magnesium, and it's the same generic advice every single time. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. And you nailed it, right? People don't actually care about sleep. They care about the performance benefits from sleep. They care about being more focused, more productive, having more energy, because that's what's going to give them more hours to move the business forwards and actually be more successful, right? So, like, my whole thing is like, look, how can we actually just get you the performance benefits without doing the shit that you actually don't need to do? Because not everybody needs to take magnesium. Not everyone needs to wear blue light blockers. Some people can view a screen 2 hours before bed and be completely fine. But like for the individual, what's the actual like 1 to 2 things that they're doing that's disrupting their sleep? How can we cut it? Because that's where the biggest difference is going to be. And then what can we layer on top that actually makes a difference? Because if you just give someone everything and tell, oh, do this, do this, do this, it's like throwing darts in the dark. You don't even know what's going to work and nothing's probably going to hit bullseye anyway. And you're just like, the person's not going to stick to it. And like, as coaches, we know that if you give someone everything all at once, right, they're not going to stick to it. If you tell someone who's overweight currently that they need to do cardio an hour a day for 7 days a week and they need to eat like 1,000 calories, they are going to do that for potentially 1 day if you're lucky and then fall back into the old same habits. So it's not just about like what are the things that you need to do. It's like what are the specific things that you need to do to actually improve your sleep specifically based on your physiology and your current psychology and habits, and how can we reverse engineer it and actually fix the root issue rather than giving you surface level things that you don't actually need to do and aren't going to work for you anyway.
Yeah, I think people overcomplicate it a lot. The coaches, all sorts of niches.
Mm.
And I think definitely you need to be simple, as simple as possible, as concise as possible, and as result focused as possible, rather than telling the client all these things that you're going to do and they're going to have to do to get the result. You kind of got to just guide them and focus on the result, especially when you're trying to sell, especially when you're in content. People don't care about how they get there. It's all about getting that outcome. Yeah.
I've got a good point here. Actually, I think one of the biggest things I noticed, so I'm still in a hustle culture, I would say, with this, Dan, right? In terms of what me and you do, but it's not even close to what I did for 15 years in my career. The biggest difference I've noticed since I left the UK and where I can have a bit more, where I'm my own boss and I can be a bit more selective with my own sleep patterns is willpower, right? So actually, I found that my hunger patterns are far easier to control. I found that I act less on impulse, right? But there must be even so many more benefits, right? So I know I said I'd stay up late, but actually, as far I can monitor my own sleep a little bit more. That's some small changes I noticed that maybe I wasn't expecting. What other sort of like changes are there that you would maybe think that you're not going to expect that you're going to see? Maybe like testosterone levels for a guy, even someone who's my sort of age. There must be so
Yeah.
many there.
So I feel like if we actually if we take that and kind of take what you said, like, let's look at the benefits as a result of you not having negative impacts, right? So it's like the reduction in cravings, so the improved ability to actually stick to a diet that's clean. It's also the improved motivation, the more drive, right? Because if you ever had it where you've got a really full-on day, you haven't slept very well, and you're just like, how am I going to get through this without like 5 coffees, right? So it's about like just not needing that and therefore having more natural energy to get stuff done. It also comes down to the point of like, when you actually look at it at baseline physiological level, well, sleeping less than 6 hours for a week has been shown to reduce testosterone levels by 10 to 15% in males. That's 1 week. A lot of business owners that I speak to are sleep deprived for like 6, 12, 18 months. So you have to imagine their testosterone levels are going to be in the bin. So it's like, no wonder that they feel like they're running on empty or have no drive or get brain fog, can't think clearly. So I think that oftentimes these symptoms that business owners think, oh, it's just normal, it's just part of like the business, the grind life, can actually just be traced back to you're not sleeping well. Your sleep quality's off. Your sleep duration's probably off. It's been off for like 6 months, and that's why you actually feel in a state of like fight or flight anxiety, just need to push through, feel like you're running on empty. Like those symptoms can typically be traced back to poor sleep.
Dan, I imagine there's so many angles that you wanna go from this. I think you're much more analytical than me. I've got a few technical ones I'd like to ask, but I mean, Dan, how about this related to your cycling and stuff? I've seen how you are with the stats because obviously I know with sleep, right, Chester. When I look at say like X for example, they're very keen to show their stats. I know you're talking about the rhythm dysregulations and stuff. But Dan, where does that go
Mm.
from your end? And also, Dan, would you use that in a marketing strategy to appeal to certain types of personalities? You know, maybe I think that sort of stuff appeals to an introvert type. I don't know. You tell me. How would you use that, Dan? Because that doesn't appeal to everyone. So do you know talking about founders, right? Some people are analytical, some people are not. Me and Dan are completely different characters. We get along. Some things would appeal to Dan and not appeal to me. So Dan, where would you go with that if you were working with a coach like this with the stats and the analytical side of it?
Yeah, I mean, business owners is like a big thing. Like, there's a broad range of different types of personalities that own businesses, right? So it's very essential actually that you get to know which business owners either you can help the most or that you get on with the most, or ideally both, really. I mean, I was looking at your LinkedIn profile before we came on, and you posted a week ago um, about wearing a mask while to breathe during sleep, and that
Mm.
photo just had me cracking up. Like that's just absolutely hilarious. If you wanna have a look on Chester's LinkedIn, it's
The
gonna be
Bane
linked.
mask.
I'm going to use.
Staring down the camera.
I'm going to use that as the thumbnail for this. I think. Yeah, that's a great one.
Do it.
It's so funny, but if you can make people laugh, like, you're already halfway there, and obviously, it's not gonna make everyone laugh. Not everyone's even gonna care, and that's alright. You've gotta decide who you want to help, and at the end of the day, you can't help everyone, even within your niche, which is business owners, or for us, also coaches. We don't work with everyone, and it saves you a lot of headaches as well with working with people that you don't really get on with, or you can't really help as well as you could someone else, or that you've helped in the past. So yeah, niching down within your niche is quite important as well.
There's so many ways we can go with this. When I saw the picture, I know exactly what you're on about and why. One of the reasons why I was keen to think out. It made me think of like what a visual disruptor is. If you
Mm.
look at Alex Mosey's always wearing the same stuff, right? The t-shirt and the thing. Seth Godin's a guy I really like. He wears the same glasses every time, the real colourful ones. I think actually you become associated with it, right? So some people, like I said, it might repel, but with others, it goes, actually, hang on, I want to know about this guy. I want to know about this, right? And that's something that we preach a lot, Dan, isn't it? Actually, is creating a story within the brand. There's a story within that about why it's there and why you've associated. So I love it. And it definitely stood out to me. It's one of the reasons why I reached out to you. So let's dive deeper. Remember, one of the big things this is what's working and what's not working to try and inspire others, right? Me and you're on LinkedIn. What's working for you at the moment? What's maybe not working? I actually think that leans quite well into the different types of clients, extrovert, introvert, right? I spoke to a really good guy this morning and he thinks that high ticket people want it there and there, right? He thinks that they
Mm.
want it on the spot. The extrovert types, he thinks that the introvert want the 6 to 8 clicks, 7 hours. They want to get to know you to buy. So I think within your content, there's a lot of that in there as well. So I think people would love to know maybe what's working, what's not working.
Absolutely. And I think that what I've seen in my content is that I am sort of like appealing to different types of people as well. Now, I think the foundation behind everything, despite what I'm going to get into, is just be yourself. And that's what you mentioned earlier, Greg, about like, don't care what anyone says. Don't care what anyone thinks. Just be you. As a result of you being yourself, you're going to attract people that you actually want to work with. Like, nobody wants to see the exact same 5, 10, 15, 20 posts on LinkedIn. You just look the same as everyone else. You're not going to stand out. So, like, with my posts, what I found is that I'm happy to take the mick out of myself. Like, my hooks sometimes are outrageous. I just don't care. But, like, your main point of action in a LinkedIn post should be to get people to read it. And if your post is starting with, if you want to get in shape, don't do this, do that, you're not getting anyone looking at your post. You need to hook them in. Once you've hooked people in, you can then actually get into what you want to speak about and obviously make the hook relevant to that. I found that like the personal journey, personal story stuff helps people to resonate with me because like I have had my own struggles with sleep. I felt the poor effects. I'm on the other side of it now, but I felt that deeply. It's a huge part of my life. It ruined my life for like 2 years, right? So I'm happy to speak about that and the negative effects. I'm also happy to speak about the positive benefits that I felt so people can see that journey of what it's like when you actually improve sleep. I also then leverage people that my ICP, my tribes, my niche want to see, right? So obviously business owners that want to be productive, they like to see Alex Hormozy because Hormozy is just the guy that gets stuff done. He's very productive. He's built, a business at a huge scale and he's just so well known. So I use him in my content to actually be like, okay, here's what Hormozy says. Here's the sleep angle. Here's why it's good, or here's why you should probably do something different based on your patterns. So I like add my expert opinion on top of people in my niche that the people that are reading my content resonate with and want to see more. So that brings people in, and they're the most viral posts. So they're most like top of funnel, get people onto your page posts. So Hormozy for like the business productivity side of things, and then Brian Johnson for like the sleep optimizers, the data guys, like the introverts, right? So it's like the two kind of people there. And then I've also got like the posts where I speak about results, like the ones that actually show people, okay, here's what's going on, here's how I help people, here's the benefits they felt from like a data Garmin sleep score perspective, because some people want to see that. But then also like, what's the benefits they actually felt? Like, how much more productive were they? How much more time did they get to spend with their kids? Were they like less on edge? Could they actually start thinking more clearly? Because some people want to see the data side. Other people want to see like, how's that actually going to change like how I feel in the day to day? So like my content is positioned on like those 3 levels, and like they all serve different purposes. But if you can find a way that, okay, like if I know if I kind of like do this structure for this post, it's going to do well. And that's sort of like what I found from just like trialing and erroring things. I kind of have a system for like the top of funnel, Alex Hormozy, Brian Johnson type of post, the middle of funnel, this is me, here's my struggles, here's where I'm at now kind of post, and the bottom of funnel, here's what I do for my clients, here's what changed, here's what I can do for you. So I think those are the 3 posts that people want to kind of work on.
Love that. Love that. Dan, you could talk about that all day, I bet. I can see you're itching to ask some more questions about that. There's one that I've got, maybe before I hand you over to Dan, is about pricing. I think it's one thing that many coaches get wrong. And I'd love to know, what's your perspective on it? Do you hide it? Do you get to know people? Do you have like an entry level? What's the tactics? Maybe you don't have to tell us what your price is, because actually we don't advertise ours on purpose. We call it the Veblen effect, the idea that Volkswagen, if you go in to buy a car, it has the price. If you want a Lamborghini, it says inquire within. That's the whole tactics and strategy behind us, right? But I imagine with sleep, it might be a bit different. Or is it? Or is it really high ticket? I wouldn't know. Talk me through it.
I charge more now as a sleep and performance coach than what I used to as a fitness coach, because I provide more value. Like what I do for people ultimately is going to change their lives. So the way I think that a lot of coaches undercharge themselves, and like I think that's a representation of like what you feel like you're actually doing for people and the value that you bring. But realistically, if you are changing someone's life and you know that you are going to allow them to be more present with their family, they're going to make money because they're more productive in the day, they're going to stop running on empty and feeling on edge 24/7, they're going to be at reduced risk of heart attacks and strokes because their health's in a better position, you should not be charging a low amount of money for that, because like you're changing someone's life. So people are also going to be more bought in if you charge them more, because they're making more an investment in themselves, and people need that buy-in to actually make a change, right? Realistically, if you charge like an extremely low amount, like £100 a month, nobody's gonna listen. Like it's such a low amount of money that like the person that is now in your service isn't going to listen to you say, they're not going to do anything. They're probably going to ghost you because there's no like buy-in financially. And so it's almost like you need a level of investment, so you're getting people in that are actually going to like do what you say. But then also because like realistically, as a result of you changing their life and allowing them to achieve X, Y, and Z and taking away from this pain, you shouldn't be charging a low amount for that, right? And I think a lot of coaches do undercharge, and I think that's more reflective of like how you value your service and the quality of results that you actually bring to people.
I completely agree with that. And I think that pricing is something that lots of people get wrong. And I think it's great for someone to hear that is not just me and Dan. It's completely aligned with what we say, Dan, isn't it? You know, Dan, I know you're quite keen to maybe jump in here and ask a question. Any thoughts?
Yeah, so we were talking about stories before, and obviously the transformation, which is the big thing, how you went from this terrible place to this good place, and that's what people want to see. But how do you kind of get those stories? How do you turn them into content? Because obviously there's only a finite amount of things you can talk about. So I was wondering how that process looks.
I really feel like things can be simplified to where people try and think of like loads of different ideas. Realistically, you need one or two ideas and you just keep repeating them in different ways because like that's the whole crux of it, right? Like realistically, your stories aren't going to, you don't have like thousands of amazing stories. You probably have like two or three like really gripping, life-changing stories. So you just need to find ways to tell them in different ways, right? And like coaches are under the illusion that like nobody knows who you are. Like you need to say the exact same thing loads of different times because nobody's actually seeing your content. So when someone sees your content for the first time, one, they're probably going to forget it, and two, like they might not have seen it in the first place. So I've used that CPAP mask post like 20 times. I've also used like different data posts like 20 times, and the whole point of that is like what I'm saying in it is like slightly different, but the whole message behind it is the same. And basically, you just need to get really good at just doing the exact same thing because once you find something that works, you know, people resonate with it. People want to chat to you about your service. Why would you do anything different? You need to like nail down on the thing that you're already doing.
I've got
I mean,
a good point for that, Dan. And then I'll pass it back to you. What me and Dan preach is to find a common enemy. So
Yeah.
how you react, how you get people's appeals to you is to find something that you, hence why I said we're anti-guru culture. That's not just on purpose. I'm firmly against all the tactics that they use, but actually it helps us resonate with a small viable option, Dan, doesn't it?
I mean, so practically the way that I've done that in the past, I've tweeted a lot of tweets. I've tweeted like 50,000 tweets. And obviously not all of those tweets are original ideas and all different, right? What I do is every tweet that gets over 100 likes, I've bookmarked it. I've come back to it in 2 to 3 months and I've literally copied and pasted the exact same tweet and no one's ever noticed. And it's always done well again and got me more clients again. So that's a little insider tip is you can literally copy and paste and people will not know because either they won't have seen it or they won't remember it, like you said. So yeah, little trick for anyone
I do
listening.
that.
Perfect.
Literally.
Perfect. Chester, this is the part of the show where uh, we hope that people have like a question for Dan, right? So where it's a real take home for people. So, you know, they'll listen to this part and they go, right, you know, I'm gonna set up a newsletter, I'm gonna create an X account, I'm gonna do a deep dive into Reddit, whatever it might be. I know that you're coming from, you know, a real area of expertise in terms of what you're doing, but is there something that maybe you want to discuss or something maybe you're sure of, something that Dan might be able to help you with?
Yeah, definitely. I think that what's your kind of like split with content when it comes to, you know, the three types of posts that I mentioned? Obviously, you got the ones that bring in views, and then the ones that are like a bit more bottom of funnel. Like, what do you feel is the best ratio in terms of how many of the bring people to the page ones, how many of like the personal story ones, and how many of just like the client result ones would you say is actually best to actually grow your service in the best way possible?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I mean, it depends on what stage of your journey you're at. So if you're just starting your business, you're just starting your page, you've got no one looking. Obviously, views are the most important thing. You've got to do it in order. So you've got to really focus on the view posts. And then obviously when you have people looking, you need to convert them. So you need to focus on the more personal stories. I mean, I don't really share that many client testimonial type things. Those are more like in the DMs when we're having conversations, if they're actually relevant to people that I'm talking to. Just because like it's a little bit of a waste to post all the time about your client stories if you haven't got the right people looking or you haven't got anyone looking. So I would definitely do that more personally, and it also lands a little bit better when you're in having a conversation with one person, and you're sharing that with them. So it kind of values it a little bit higher. So to answer your question, I mean, to start, views, and then conversion, and then you've got to just do it in order. It's all about the stage of the process you're at.
Makes sense. Thank you. Yeah, that's great. Find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube, all Chester Maglow. Nice and simple. It's definitely coming more into light now, and I think it needs to be because realistically it is killing people. Now, it's not just killing people in terms of like the physiological sense that they are at more risk of dementia, diabetes, heart attacks and strokes, but simply from the fact that you're actually killing your own future. When people operate at a level on fight or flight, like no sleep, caffeine, you're on edge all the time, that's no way to live. And people get used to it, and that's like their new normal. But like what they're not understanding is how much better they can be when their body's actually rested and functioning at a level that it should be. So I think that it's a massive problem, and it's commonly seen across business owners because they have the ambitious drive where they just want to work, and sleep will take the back seat. But that pattern is the thing that's actually going to make you less successful and ruin your health and not allow you to get to where you want to go, because nobody can run on fight or flight for 6, 12, 18 months without any consequences. And that's when they actually start realizing that, why am I feeling like this? I need to actually get this sorted. And that's typically where I see people coming to me most, because they have the problem, it builds, and then it's getting to a big enough point where they want to change it. But like, if you just change it now and you be more mindful, you'll get so much further and you won't have to get to that point in the first place.